Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast as we continue our 2023 Cricket World Cup coverage. We've got 3 games to talk about today. What do we have? Only 2 games? I actually can't remember this. We have 3 games to talk about today. Flipping heck. That's an absolute disaster, isn't it? That's a terrible way to get the show off and running. We've got South Africa v Australia. That will be game number 1. We have got Bangladesh v New Zealand. That will be game number 2. In part 3 and pre-recorded, we have India v Afghanistan. And of course, we'll be previewing the big one, the massive one, maybe the biggest game in cricket.
Colossal.
India v Pakistan taking place tomorrow. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Max Rowe Brown. We got there eventually, Max. We have a show. We've got a running order. What else do we need to have fun?
Well, we need cricket and we need friends and listeners, and we've got all of those things. So let's get on with it.
When do we get friends?
Patreons. They're our friends.
Yeah, we do have some patrons. Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. Let's plug our Patreon. Patreon.com/the Cricket Pod. If you like our content, well, first of all, you should like and subscribe to it. Then you should tell a friend. Then you should leave a review. And then you should head over to patreon.com/the Cricket Pod and sign up for bonus content, including my weekly tournament power ranking, our Discord, and a bunch of other stuff. Too much stuff to merch. Yeah. There is some good merch. We sent out some merch. Ross actually met. Ross today at lunchtime had lunch with a Patreon.
Yeah. Sadly, couldn't go because I wasn't in London today.
Oh no, me too. But they've got a photo outside Buckingham Palace together, which is pretty cool. So that could be you. If you head over
and
to
you can too if you sign up to the Cricket Podcast
Patreon. We will take you to the King's house, the King's gaff, and we will give you a T-shirt, and we'll take a photo with you, and then we will take the T-shirt back off because they aren't cheap. No, they're cheap enough. Fucking go in the show notes. Yesterday, it was South Africa v Australia. It was a game we were all really looking forward to. This is a game with a rich history in the World Cup, 1999, the doubleheader. Brilliant games of cricket. That's the main one that springs to mind. But in the game in general, you've got Sandpaper Gate, Test Series 1 at home and away. Like this is it's a proper contest. This South Africa, they bat first. They bat first after they are put in to bat by Pat Cummins after a questionable decision at the first toss, and it goes pretty well, you would say, for the South Africans. They end up with 311. Quinton de Kock top scores with 109. During the innings, Max, Australia dropped 6 catches, which not ideal. There was a man in the crowd with a sign tallying up the catches. Also not ideal. yeah.
So good. There's a famous phrase, isn't there, Jack, about catches and the impact on the result of a match? I can't remember it.
I believe the phrase is something like, let the other team bat for 50 overs, drop 6 catches, they post 311, and then pretend that that's a par score.
Okay.
In response, Australia, well, it was a bit of a disaster. They lost wickets regularly. Nobody got any runs apart from Marnus Labuschagne, and he has an asterisk against his name because he did it at a strike rate of 62.
Yeah, not the good asterisk for being not out. No. The bad asterisk for being slow as fuck.
Yeah. Really, the only notable thing, apart from how bad this was as a batting performance, with the umpiring decision, Steve Smith got one, which looked questionable, and then when you actually saw the ball tracking, looked quite out. And poor Marcus Stoinis was given out when he very clearly was not out. Mitchell Starc and Pat Cummins stopped it being a 200-run loss.
Yeah, great. Silver linings.
But it did go South Africa's way. A narrow 134-run win for the Proteas. Great start to the tournament for the South Africans. Let's start there. Big praise to South Africa. Back-to-back tons for Quinton de Kock. The bowlers in this game were phenomenal. Best bowling performance of the tournament, I say, Max. What say you?
I agree. First, we'll start with Quinton de Kock, shall we? Second player ever to score back-to-back hundreds to start an ODI World Cup competition. The only other The only other man to have done it, as Jack chokes on his water, is another South African, AB de Villiers. Not a bad bit of company to have when it comes to batting records, and just makes it all the more painful that Quinton de Kock won't be playing ODI cricket in future. And I guess the South Africans will have to do their best to try and make him change his mind. It was a stunning knock and pretty unlucky in the way he got out, trying to reverse sweep Maxwell and then popping up onto his shoulder and then rolling down his back and onto the stumps or whatever happened. But they kept going, didn't they? The South African batting lineup it's exciting, and they keep going for it, and it kept coming off. Obviously aided by the 6 drops, as you mentioned, but that's not the South Africans' fault. Keep going for it. You make your own luck. All of those adages that come into play. But yeah, Crickviz had it 50-50, didn't it, at the halfway stage? Which, given that they were chasing over 300, was pretty optimistic, I think, on the Aussies' part. But there was still a general consensus, wasn't there, for around watching the game, that actually it looked like a decent deck. Should probably give some credit to the Lucknow pitch replacers for the job they did.
Definitely, I think that's the pitch of the tournament. I'd go that far. Not even just a good pitch. I thought it was really well balanced. I thought it was a well earned 300 runs, but Australia had points where they were able to pull the game back through skillful bowling. It wasn't just it wasn't a carpet. It wasn't a plastic wicket. It was it had a little bit in it, turned a bit as well, but nothing extravagant. And it wasn't like that the first Chennai pitch we saw where the turn was a little bit inconsistent. It was playable if you were good. And I think we saw a few people have been sort of saying that the World Cup hasn't delivered so far because none of the games have been close. And obviously, in an ideal world, we would have had a few tight contests. And at halftime, as you said, Crickviz had it at 50-50. I thought it was more like 60-40 or South Africa, to be honest. And
within the realm.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. But possible. Like you thought you were going to see a contest. But South Africa were too good, and I don't really have a problem with that as a sporting spectacle. What we saw here was a team that worked really hard to post an above average score, and then when the opposition came out, a talented team, by the way, Australia. I mean, I know it's not worked for them, but it's not necessarily because they're all crap at cricket. They're actually pretty good, but they were outperformed. Lungi and Gidi, one of the opening spells of the tournament. And it was a pitch where you could do this. It was really, really top quality seam bowling, a little bit going in the air as well. Rabada bowling first change was magnificent. 3 for 33 for him, like borderline unplayable. I think he did. He was the one who got what was his name? Josh Inglis bowled. It's a good ball. Josh Inglis plays down the wrong line a little bit, and it sort of goes away off the pitch enough to beat the outside edge and hit the top of off. And Josh Inglis sells it with the ooh face, which probably you've seen going round. Like it's a real, like Josh Inglis makes it seem like it was ball of the century, and it was a really good ball. But that kind of bowling from South Africa was exactly what you needed to do on this pitch, and they have the weaponry to execute that. It was I thought it was and like, so to answer the pitch question, but to roll in the South Africa praise, I thought good pitch that offered enough to the bowlers without being one-sided. I thought it was a fair pitch, and I thought South Africa got it absolutely spot on. They did. There was a lot of graphics about where they bowled and so on during the game. Basically, it was test match lengths, nothing full whatsoever. They didn't bowl a single full ball, I think, in the first 10 overs, which is really, really impressive.
Yeah,
it was bumpers or it was test match length, and that was the way to go. And Australia didn't have an answer, batted a bit badly, and deservedly got spanked by the much better team.
Yeah, and it's not the World Cup's fault, is it? When a team just plays badly and gets beaten by a team playing really well, that's not the fault of where or what you should host the competition on. That's cricket. And
look, it's an asynchronous game, isn't it? Like one team gets a go and then another team gets a go. And if one of the goes isn't very good, then this kind of result,
Could be quite
this right kind
lopsided,
of result can happen. But I wouldn't say in this particular instance that it was necessarily a bad game of cricket. I think you saw
No, it was high
loads of
quality
skill.
on show, wasn't
Yeah.
there? Mostly from
Yeah.
South Africa, but
Not pretty much exclusively from South Africa. But I don't want to take too much away from them, because I think that's what the story of the game really was. It was a South African performance that was virtually complete. It had the steady 100 of de Kock. It had their batting tactic in full display. It is, I'd say, just to caveat this slightly, it is easy to do this when you don't lose your first wicket until the 20th over of the game. But what South Africa want to do is attack the power play a little bit, but nothing too extravagant. De Kock's in there to try and beat the infield a few times. Then they want to go from the 10th over to the 40th over. They want to add 180 runs in that period. They want to score about 6 and over. And the way they want to do it, they'll take risks to do this. They'll play a lot of reverse sweeps. They'll come down the pitch a lot. They'll try and hit a boundary and over. And the reason they're doing this is pretty simple. Like, this is the period of the game where there are 5 infielders and 4 guys on the boundary. That means if you're batting, you have usually 2 boundary options to hit to each over. Whereas when you get 5 on the fence, like you have in a T20 or the final 10 overs,
one side of the ground, can't you?
Yeah. There's generally only one boundary option, which massively changes the game. That means you know there's a big incentive to take risks in these middle 30 overs. Having said that, like, it can all fall in a heap, so you are taking a risk. But South Africa have decided they've got the firepower to do it, and that's how they're going to play. We've seen it 2 games in a row, and I think if they stick to that tactic, and don't I'm not going to say the C word, but we're all thinking it, then I think they could be a real handful, because most teams in this period of play, even though there is the incentive there, they still score at 4 or 5 or 4.5 to 5.5 and over. That doesn't sound like a huge difference. 5.5 to 6 runs, doesn't it? But over 30 overs, 15 runs is quite a few runs. So I thought, all-round performance from South Africa was great. Power play, tick, middle 30 over to got you 180 runs, and then you can launch all the big boys at the end, hit a few sixes.
And they've got
with
two of the best players in the world to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and then
it's a nice way of using the players you have.
Also, I thought their selection was spot on too. They brought Shamsi back into the team for Kurtzay. I think it's Kurtzay, is that, or Coatsay? Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
God, someone actually did tell us exactly how to say this, and we've forgotten. He comes into the team, bowls really well, gets his first 2 World Cup wickets. It's a proper team. Do you want to dig into Australia?
I was actually going to say what sort of one other thing in terms of what your point about the way South Africa attack the middle overs or take some risks in the middle overs. And we don't want to make it all about England because they weren't playing. But I'm gonna compare them to the way England go, because England are also, they like to make a big song and dance about the risks they take and how they go about it. And I think maybe they could learn something from South Africa about doing it slightly smarter. England basically, their lexicon of taking risks seems to be try and smash it out the park. And South Africa, it's a bit more like, well, make the use of the 4 fielders and hit it, sometimes in the air, but also use the boundary option of scoring a 4 rather than having to clear the fielders in the position where the fielders are standing, which England's players obviously have the ability to do. So I think maybe there's something for them to look into there. But Australia, sorry. Shocking. They looked completely impotent with the ball. Everything that South Africa got out the pitch and bowling in the right areas, Australia didn't really do. A little bit of swing up front, but that was it. And I suppose the comparison of the way South Africa approached the middle overs, absolutely no control in the middle overs from Australia. Glenn Maxwell aside, who bowled really well, I think Adam Zampa again is proving to be a real problem for Australia. Going into the tournament, obviously they've just got the one frontline spinner in the side, and teams are getting after him. South Africa obviously saw a lot of him in the warm-ups where they played a few games against each other, which may have played a part in it. But it happened against India as well. and it's happened against other teams in the past. We've seen Zampa get the treatment, and it's happened again. And how much of a, I mean, well, I'll say how much of a problem. It's a pretty big problem, isn't it, for Australia? But what can they do to try and fix it? Is it something Adam Zampa can do, or do Australia need to use their resources a bit differently?
I think it's a bit more endemic than that. I think that we saw this a little bit in the Ashes. Little diversion here and make everything about England. We saw in the Ashes that Australia, they came up against Bazball, and their approach to sort of dealing with that, they knew they knew what was going to happen. England had given them a 1 year preview of what was going to happen in the Ashes, and Australia, they turned up, and their whole response basically seemed to be like, "Oh, we'll just put a guy on the boundary early, like that. That will fix it." And it sort of, to some extent, did work. Like in the Ashes, we'll put a guy on the boundary, and then we'll just trust that we're all quite good at cricket here. And over 25 days of Test match cricket, we think we'll probably end up winning because Steve Smith's quite good, and Pat Cummins is quite. That seemed to basically be the game plan. One guy back, and let's play some cricket. And it like I said, it did sort of work. Were Australia the better team in the Ashes? Probably not. That rain happened. It was 2-2. And they got away with it. And they're like, yeah, retain the Ashes. Come on. But I think that end result papered over some of the poor preparation for that series. And I wonder here whether a similar thing is sort of happening in ODI cricket. I think didn't 7 of the players in this match start the 2015 World Cup final or something like that? Like it's a sort of aging team from a slightly different era. Not saying it's bad necessarily, but they do seem to be a group of players who go out and play cricket, and then stuff sort of happens to them. They don't seem to be a front foot team. They don't seem to be the ones calling the shots. Now, if you think about the great Australian side, one of the sort of difficult things about playing against them was the relentlessness of them, the way that you'd think you'd have a problem under control, and then a completely different problem would pop up. Like there's a famous match in 2003 where England were all over them, and then Andy Bickle got a 50. And it was just like, well, where's that fucking come from? Like, how do you legislate for that kind of behaviour? And I don't see any of that in this team. I don't see a team that are anywhere. I think they just think they're really good at cricket, and they'll probably get away with it. But I don't think they have the scrapping nature of some of the previous Australian teams. I don't think they have the talent level that they think they have. And I don't think they're playing a particularly cutting-edge version of the game. We talk about South Africa and how they've recognised that there's these 30 overs in the middle of the game where you can outscore the opposition with just a little bit more risk than most teams are willing to play.
Australia rocking up with Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne.
Exactly. And then at the end of the game, they're like, oh, it kind of didn't go our way. And then people are making excuses to them about how they're tired and they played a lot of cricket. It's like,
I mean, we've
all played a lot of cricket, mate. We've all played a lot of cricket. Like
it's I suppose it's a little bit enforced, isn't it? Obviously, the Travis Head injury really, I think, robs them of a whole lot more than maybe it looks on the surface, because the replacement they've gone with is Labuschagne. That's obviously an Australian decision that you can argue with, because it does mean, and we've seen it, sort of things get bogged down a little bit in the middle. But Travis Head, like Australia's ODI success in the last year or so has basically been predicated on Travis Head and David Warner going pretty hard out in the power play, setting a massive platform. And then, whoever's Steve Smith hasn't actually played that much ODI cricket, I guess. So
you've dropped Labuschagne.
Yeah, and they dropped Labuschagne. So you've had completely different guys in there. Mitch Marsh has been lower down the order and been a bit more belligerent, and they had more of a platform and then gone about it slightly differently. And they're now playing basically a side that's completely different to that. Mitch Marsh up the order hasn't worked in the first 2 games. That might not continue, because he's a good player, and he's a good player of pace bowling, and you'd expect him to to do a bit more, but it hasn't worked out, and that's put pressure on the rest of the order. And Steve Smith and al-Hasan haven't been able to catch up from the lack of starts, and then it's all just sort of fallen a heap from there in the first 2 games. So you do wonder what they can do to change it with a squad of 15 people.
Well, I mean, look, Travis Head is a problem, but like you can't in a World Cup, and we've said this a few times. This World Cup's going to be about solving problems. The conditions are so varied, and the margins are going to be so far. It's going to be about which team solves problems best. You can't just throw your hands up and be like, oh well, Travis Head's not available, so therefore all of our other plans are now going to fail.
No, obviously not.
Yeah, it's borderline.
I think the point was more like the one thing that they are missing has actually ended up with 3 or 4 more problems than it actually is on the face of it. Which again, I mean, you're completely right. Like that's not, that side of it is an Australian problem, and they can't just say it's Travis Head's not being there is the problem. But there is more to it that is a bit self-inflicted on the back of the injury.
I think it's some arrogance about how they think cricket works. I just don't think they've done their homework, and I think it really shows. I mean, this is South Africa. It really showed in this game, and I was really happy for South Africa that they got to kind of be the ones to deliver the message, if you like, that you're out of date. Because South Africa are an example of a team that have taken on board a lot of these messages, play a really progressive type of cricket, have plans for getting people out. Have brought 2 spinners to a World Cup in fucking India. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they think that they thought this was going to work. Like, and then they select a bunch of other guys. Marcus Stoynes can only bowl in every other game because of fitness issues. It's just like, what are you thinking? What are you actually thinking is going to happen?
Big
We've
problem.
got a captain that everyone hates. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but
why not? Let's throw some speculation and hyperbole in. It's good.
And you've got what ultimately is the game plan? It's Dave Warner got a few 50s in a row, and he had a good World Cup a couple of years ago, didn't he? Or 4 years ago. Steve Smith was quite good in 2015. Maxwell and Mitch Stark. It's not a game plan. It's just a list of names. I don't know. So that's my take. Anyway, anything else in this game, or should we move on?
Do you think they can turn it around, Australia? They're 2 big defeats, but they are against teams that may well qualify, and they could easily just win 6 of the next 7. And
absolutely, they can. Like it's for all of the fuckery of the first two matches. It will be a World Cup about solving problems. There's no reason that they can't look at what they're doing and say, maybe the way we're bowling is, cannon fodder. They got a lot of flack on comms. Just a quick example here. Matt Hayden really went off on them for using Glenn Maxwell in the power play instead of trying to take a wicket when South Africa were like 30 for none after 6 overs. And that seems like a small point, and they've got to bowl Maxwell somewhere, and he can bowl in the power play. But it is kind of indicative of the wider issues that they have. That they're not really thinking like, okay, the other team are about to go fucking bananas on us here unless we get a wicket. What's the plan? They're like, well, it would be useful if we get a couple overs of Glenn Maxwell out the way now when Temba Bavuma isn't going.
Who ended up being their best bowler by some distance.
But you can, I think it sort of worked, but like you can solve some of these problems. You can think, well, maybe the pitch isn't playing exactly like we thought, or maybe bowling full and looking for swing isn't working. Let's drag our lengths back, bowl a bit of test match, put a second slip in. I don't know. There are ways you can try and force a wicket, and you can change from being what is quite a defensive team that's just thinking, oh, we've got a 5th bowler problem here. How do we maneuver him round the 4 frontline guys? Well, you can move to a more front footing. You can give Stark an extra couple of overs in the power play. You could try some bumpers. You could have bowled Zampa in the power play and been like, well, here's a leg spinner. He's going to toss it up there. New ball. If you get hold of it, it's going to go over the infield. But if one grips, here we're in the game. Instead, you go to your defensive spinner, and it's small points like that that that, you correct 2 or 3 things like that, and suddenly your team looks a little bit more dynamic. At the moment, they just look like they're kind of waiting for each other to do something. Should we take a break now?
Let's do that.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, I've got a request for you now. Go to your phone. 88% of you listen on phone. We know that. We're tracking you. Open your app. Find the review section. Open it. 5 stars. That's what you need to do. By the time I finish this sentence, you can probably have pulled that off. Go to your review place. 5 stars. If you're listening on YouTube, watching on YouTube, I want you to click like and subscribe. They're the messages. Max, we're going to talk about the cricket that happened today.
Yep.
I'm going to give you the great honour of talking through a true World Cup classic, Bangladesh.
You do me such a kindness, sir. Thank you so much. So over to Chennai, Bangladesh versus New Zealand, and after seeing what the Chennai pitch did in the Australia game against India, thought maybe there'd be a sniff of an upset with Bangladesh's trio of finger spinners potentially being awkward. But they firstly didn't win the toss, and that allowed New Zealand to bowl first, which they would have obviously wanted to do. And chasing, actually, Shakib didn't know what he wanted to do, so didn't mind losing the toss, which is exactly what you want to hear from your captain. The other thing he said before the game, which was absolutely fantastic, was that so far our bowling and batting haven't been great, so they're the 2 areas we're looking to improve. So just have a think about how many areas there are in a game of cricket. Tells you the state of play of Bangladesh. So they didn't improve on their batting in the first ball because Lytton Das was out immediately, hoiking one into the leg side. So then it was Operation Rebuild, which didn't go that well. They were 4 down fairly quickly. But Mishfiqur and Shakib, they're the 2 main men for Bangladesh. So they were the guys that led the recovery. And they did pretty well. They put together a decent partnership and took it to a point where, Bangladesh had a fighting chance of putting up a score that they could defend. But then they lost another couple of wickets, didn't really get going. Mahmudullah did his best, 37-year-old Mahmudullah, who came in batting at 8. Bit weird. Scored 41, and they ended up, thanks to a final over from Daryl Mitchell, 245 for 9. Probably never going to be enough, but at least something to have a bowl at. And actually, they started really well. The pacers for New Zealand, the left armers, Sharaful and Mustafizur, got a bit of swing, got a bit of movement off the pitch, made it tricky. Bowled a nice length, nicked out Ravindra, had Conway in a bit of trouble. And when he fell, a couple of wickets down, not ahead of the rate, they were just about still in the game, but New Zealand had their ace up their sleeve. Kane Williamson was back, and a chase of 250 on a pitch that was actually all right. It wasn't too much wrong with it. Wasn't the easiest pitch to bat on the score runs in the world, but it certainly wasn't. Didn't have any demons in it. And a chase of 250 is child's play for a man like him. He steadied the ship, as he does, as is his nickname. Daryl Mitchell came in, put some gloss on it. And the only blot on the copybook for New Zealand will be that no sooner had Kane Williamson returned from injury, he returned to the dugout, retired hurt, after a freak ball thrown in from the infield, struck him on the thumb, the unpadded thumb of his glove, holding the bat. So we'll wait to see what happens there. But that would be a real blow for New Zealand, having just got him back to lose him again. But it may have just been a precaution because the game was well dead by then. So hopefully he's all right.
I reckon he'll be fine. I think they're playing Afghanistan next. I don't know how they arranged this schedule. How did they get that schedule? I mean, it's ridiculous. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play in that one. I got the feeling because he was hobbling around a little bit. I don't think he'd batted for this long in a
obviously he did. He played one warm up, didn't he? He scored a 50 and then was like, that's enough, and didn't feel.
So I got the impression that he was actually looking for a little bit of an excuse to
Yeah.
walk off, and that presented itself. Obviously, because it was a new injury, I think he'd have been allowed to bat again in Operation Save the Team if something horrendous
Crazy happened. Yeah.
But that wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. That was never on. Pretty standard win for New Zealand. Very disappointed with Bangladesh. The second game in a row. They're stuck in a little bit of a weird vortex in that they're not bad, are they? I mean, like they're fine. I expect they'll probably comfortably beat Netherlands and might well beat Sri Lanka as well. But what they seem to do is always kind of get about 220 to 245.
Yeah.
And always let the other team score more than
270.
Yeah. Like, I mean, they're kind of the archetypal. No, it isn't. Like they're a team. When I think of Bangladesh with the ball in hand, I'm thinking 275 to 300. That's what the other team are going to get here. And when I look at Bangladesh with the bat in hand, I'm like 220 to 240 or 220 to 250. And that, I don't know how good people are with numbers, but there's a difference, isn't there? Like you've got
one's bigger than the other one.
Yeah. And the other thing is there's sort of like no variation in how those things go. That they've got a team of left arm spinners and kind of left arm seamers as well, just guys who bowl with their left hand, who all very consistently seem to produce figures of about 1 for 50, 1 for 60. So there's like, they're doing enough to be in the team, but they're not. I don't look at the team and be like, that's a guy who could get a fifer. I am scared of him. I'm like, no, very dependable. Team, very dependable. And then their batting is exactly the same. There's nobody in that team where I'm like, well, when it's their day, there's no Kusal Mendes in this team, is there? Is what I'm trying to get at.
They had a couple of guys like that. They'd be in with a shout of winning games like this because you can depend on their bowling to restrict teams to like a gettable score, and then someone will have a day out. But
that's it.
I mean, Linton Das is possibly the only one that could do that, and he went immediately, which wasn't ideal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think,
and I guess they had a guy who's got one day World Cup hundreds against New Zealand and England came in at number 8, which was possibly.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, it's not like they've got bad players. They've got some really good players, but the ceiling of the batting is below the floor of the bowling. Even though they're actually not too bad. Like I don't think. I mean, it will probably happen in the next game now. But I don't think of Bangladesh like, they're going to be bowled out for 100. They're a complete disarray. Like I'm not. No, even when they were 4 wickets down, I was like, it's Mushrikar and Shakib. They'll put on a partnership. They're good players. Had they duly did, but it put them exactly in the our bowling's nowhere near good enough to defend this area that we knew they would land in at the beginning of the game. Like I don't think at any point in that match anything except what I expected to happen happened.
Yeah, no, that's a fair assessment. And New Zealand were very professional, went about the job well. I think Lockie Ferguson was a bit quick for a couple of them.
New Zealand are almost the opposite of this, right? As well, like they're the team that I don't feel like they're going to go bonkers with the bat. They kind of did. They did wail on England, but that's a different story. But I feel like they're like somewhere between 275 and 300. That's what they're going to score. But with the ball, it's going to be sub 250 a lot of the time. Like it's a dependable sub 250 bowling team that they have here. Like they're there's a lot to like about
Santner.
Yeah.
It's looking pretty good for New Zealand. We should temper some of the New Zealand hype. I think some people decided they're going to win the World Cup already, but I mean, they smashed England, but they did then
That was a
play
good
the Netherlands and Bangladesh and win those comfortably. So it's not it's not a slam dunk for them, but they've certainly been a lot more impressive than I certainly gave them credit for before the tournament started. So fair play to them. They've been good.
Probably if they beat Afghanistan and they beat Sri Lanka, which we think they will, they will need one more win to make it to the knockouts. Like it would be quite unlucky if they didn't, and that's without even factoring in net run rate. If they win the other 2 matches by miles and only marginally lose the other games, they might still make it to the knockouts with 5 wins. So they're in a really good position.
They're in a really good spot.
Yeah, I still
They
don't
want-
love them though. Weirdly,
No, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to. They're not sexy. They're
no.
not sexy.
Right, should we talk?
Maybe physically, but
Should we do some previews? Because there's some
we should.
cricket coming out.
Well,
There's
one
only
last thing to
two
say on
matches this
Bangladesh,
weekend.
though.
Go on.
One, they actually hit their record number of sixes in ODI today. So that's one thing that
Yeah,
they've got going for them. That's a bit of an
well, good for
improvement.
them. There's two matches coming up this weekend. England v Afghanistan, obviously the big one on Sunday. Which way do you think that's going to go, Max? Let's get that one out of the way quickly.
Yeah, another solid win for England. Hopefully, a net run rate boost of about 3. I think. I reckon they can bag a net run rate swing of 3 and propel themselves back into contention for top 4. Yeah, I mean, it's Delhi as well. So I can't. If the pitch is anything like it has been so far, I can't see Afghanistan competing. They might actually, put on a bit more than they normally do, but England should have way too much for them.
Yeah,
should be comfortable.
I would have thought so. I'd have thought that will go pretty much to plan for England. I'm looking on the Google win predictor, 90% England. So there is a chance. I don't even really know where the chance comes from, though. I mean, I think it would take something quite extraordinary.
Yeah, England just having a brain fart.
Like 3 run-outs. 3 run-outs and a 5 for Rashid Khan. That kind of nonsense. So yeah, there's that. I think England will probably win. They'll be looking for net run rate. I think they recovered it, didn't they, after the Bangladesh win? But it's still not.
It's positive.
Maybe where they'd want it to be. Yeah.
But,
I think they'll be looking to, pile on another one, which leaves India v Pakistan to round off the show. Where do we even start with a game like this? I mean, this is it's
probably probably start with the fireworks show and all the rest of it.
Oh, fuck me. Well, no, we'll get to that. But like this, if you're new to cricket, this is probably the biggest match of the group stage. In fact, it's probably about 70% of the reason that the group stage is the way that it is, because it guarantees that this match will happen.
Yeah,
every World Cup. Obviously, we all want to see it. I'm not going to complain about an India-Pakistan game. Don't get me wrong, but that is how these things work. It will be played at the Narendra Modi Stadium, the Modi Dome. Definitely nothing vain about naming a 120,000 seat cricket stadium after yourself. And it should be full. 120,000 people in, or 130,000. Nobody ever really knows, and they'll definitely say it's more than actually in there.
Yeah, problem is, Jack, the stadium's so big that even when there's 130,000 people there, it only looks half full. So it's a bit
no, this will definitely sell out. There were some like ticket there was some ticket shenanigans about it. Apparently, maybe only 15% of the tickets actually went on general sale, and the rest were sort of hoovered up by various people affiliated with the ICC and BCCI.
A lot of people affiliated with the ICC.
Well, yeah. So look, I'm looking forward to it. Max, talk to me about what you're looking forward to. What are the big battles? What should the listeners look forward to?
It's India-Pakistan. What more do you need to say than India-Pakistan? I'm looking forward to a slightly more competitive game than the Asia Cup. We'll start with that. I mean, I think actually, we joke about the crowd, but the atmosphere for this, it will be stunning. And that ground, if it is anything close to full, will be an unbelievable wall of noise. It will be impossible to hear anything that's going on for any of the commentators or any of the players out there. But it's really great when you have a sporting spectacle that size with such a raucous atmosphere. So really looking forward to that. And then obviously like the key battles. I mean, I can't really look at it without anything other than seeing India dominating in almost every facet of the game. But the only chink of light perhaps for Pakistan will be if they can extract a repeat of the Shaheen Afridi opening spell of the T20 World Cup that we all remember, that decimated the India top order. That'll be a huge thing that Pakistan will be looking for. But aside from that, I think India, they overmatch Pakistan batting wise, top to bottom. Rizwan and Babar Azam are quality, but there's they're up against Kohli, King Legend, Rohit, whoever else, Jadeja, Hardik Pandya. So it's not like Pakistan's best assets are better than their equivalents in the India side. So it'll be all about how well Pakistan can step up and whether they can force the Indian players into mistakes, I think. But I'm finding it hard to look past India for this. But there is something, isn't there, just in the furore, the fanfare, the pre-match show that's basically meant we didn't actually have a tournament pre-tournament show lead in or anything like that. They've actually just saved it all for this one game halfway through the tournament, which is utterly bizarre and totally in keeping with what you'd expect in this kind of situation.
Yeah.
So part of that makes me think that the cricketing gods are gonna take umbrage words to the whole thing. I'd just be like, yeah, you know what, you're gonna lose now. Umbrage, that's the word.
Yeah,
Simple.
umbrage. Hubris. That's another word that I would apply.
There is hubris involved.
There is. Here's what I would say about this fucking show business. One, it's a group stage game of the World Cup. Like I know it's the biggest group stage game. That's the who is playing is the selling point here. You don't need to be telling me who's in the crowd and having special fireworks display. Get a rapper in. None of these things need to happen. Just play the fucking cricket match. I don't want an extended half time. The games are 8 hours long as it is. Like, let's just please get to the fucking cricket bit.
Yeah, have at least make it a day game if you're going to have an extended half time.
Two, if you want, I don't actually think they are doing an extended half time, but
no,
I
might do.
Want any of that?
Madonna's going to be on.
If you want to do this, I don't really have a problem actually with it happening. Like, if you want to have a show at Song and Dance, absolutely no problem with that being part of cricket. It happens in the IPL all the time. I think it's kind of a curiosity, but fine, part of the glitz and glamour of it. It's not really what the World Cup's about. That's my objection to it. Like the World Cup is about who is the best at cricket in the fucking world, not like how do we make a little bit more cash by keeping people tuned in at half time. Like, that's not like concentrate on the sport element. That's what the bit more purity of sport is what I'm asking for. If you want to do the song and dancing, play a fucking bilateral. That's what I would say. Do that. Arrange some matches between your two nations and do it on your time, not my time. That's my main message about all of this. Really looking forward to the cricket, though.
So you're going to boycott the game, Jack?
I shan't be boycotting the game. Of course, I'm going to watch the game, but I do think if you're going to do these things, you invite mockery on yourself, and I'm going to bring the mockery. Like, it's like the stadium now. If you're going to do that, you can't expect everyone to be like, oh yeah, what a brilliant name for a stadium. It's like the Colonel Gaddafi Stadium in Pakistan. Yeah, like if you do that, like you're opening yourself up for mockery, and this is exactly what this is doing. And there is an element of hubris about this as well. Like it comes across a little bit like, come watch the India cricket party where we're going to stomp all over Pakistan and sing and dance while we're doing it. And I hope it fires up Pakistan. And I'd really like to say, I fear that it won't, and I fear that they'll be overwhelmed. They've probably got a lot less experience playing in these kind of environments than the India team. And I wonder if that will be an issue. Actually, I mean, I'm not sure. I even say that. I'm not sure actually it will be. I think it basically will come down to who's better at the sport. And unfortunately, India are better at the sport. Having said that, like I do think they're a waste of victory for Pakistan. Like the batting is good, yeah. The Pakistan batting is all right. They just got 345 in a chase. That's not too bad. Is it like really sexy? No. Is it kind of nonsensical sometimes? Absolutely. That's Pakistan. But it isn't bad. Like, it gets runs. And then it is a bowling attack that at some point in this tournament, probably multiple points in this tournament, is going to crush a few batting lineups. It's going to do it. And it could be Sunday. Suspect it won't be. I think India as an all-round package will be a lot. I think that I think they'll be really up for it. Shubman Gill back in the team.
Yeah.
Pakistan have never even beaten India at a World Cup, have they? It's been a bit of a one-sided rivalry.
Yeah, it's an uphill struggle, but first time for everything, eh?
Yeah. Cool. Anything else on this game? Who do you think is going to win? You think India?
I think India, yeah.
Well, just to play devil's advocate then.
Why not? We can't both say the same thing, can we?
Pakistan,
boring.
Afridi, Yorkers, Harris Ralph knocking people's block off, Nawaz getting
Nawaz hitting 6 sixes in an over.
Here's how I think Pakistan could genuinely win. If Pakistan chase, I think it could be a really good game. There's rumours that Siraj is going to come out of the team for Modi Dome specialist Mohammed Shami. I feel like it's a really dubious decision. Apparently, Ashwin might come back in for Shardul Thakur. Not even sure that's a great decision, to be honest. Maybe Gill still got dengue fever, and I don't know if that's contagious. But look, there's a lot. Max, we've done quite a long show here. Should we wrap up?
Let's.
All right. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much for watching. As we said earlier in the show, please do like and subscribe to the Cricket Podcast wherever you follow. If you're on audio, you will shortly hear part 3, which is a recap of India v Afghanistan. If you're on YouTube, the video ends now.